Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mikey Report College Bowl Preview Show. That's right, I am Mikey Edwards, here inside our Mount Cop Studios to cover all the college football bowl games starting tonight in just about 3 hours until I think it's like the midway through the month of January. There were 3 games that already occurred, and once I find my spot, I can tell you exactly which ones they are. Because we do have this whole thing where it has all the bowls and whatnot, so I'm trying to get that to you. We had the New Mexico Bowl, the Idaho Potato Bowl, and the New Orleans Bowl. That already transpired. And we had 1 blowout and 2 close ones so far this bowl season. The first one ended up being the New Mexico Bowl, Temple versus Wyoming. Temple ended up winning 37-15. The Gildan New Mexico Bowl, Temple won 37-15. And then Ohio beat Utah State for the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, 24-23, and the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Louisiana Lafayette beat San Diego State 32-30. Temple pretty much ran away with it in the second quarter. Had a 28-7 lead at this half, and pretty much that was just the end of it. Pierce from Temple had 25 carries, 100 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that was a big spot. Temple had a 21-0 lead in the first half. So therefore Temple had Wyoming's number pretty much. Wyoming was shut down in the first quarter and the third quarter. So that was pretty much the summation of it. It was the MAC versus WAC when Ohio faced Utah State, and Ohio, with a late surge, upending Utah State and earning their first bowl victory. Tyler Tettleton, his late heroics helped Ohio erase decades of misery in the postseason. Sophomore calmly led 61-yard drive in the final 2 minutes and scored on a 1-yard keeper with 13 seconds left to give Ohio its first bowl victory, 24-23, in the Idaho Potato Bowl. So, Tettleton 220 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. And Louisiana Lafayette had a late second field goal. Brett Bayer's 50-yard field goal lifting Louisiana Lafayette. Blaine Gautier's record-setting passing, 470 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick, and a long clutch kick by Brett Bayer, 50-yarder, gave Louisiana Lafayette fans the kind of thrills they haven't had since Jake Delhomme was playing for the Raging Cajuns. Raging Cajuns pulled that out 32-30. Looked like Lafayette had control the first half, leading 13-3. San Diego State came back in the third and in the second half, but last-minute heroics always something to concern yourself with when looking at bowl games. So, as I'm already 5 minutes into our bowl preview show, let me get into the upcoming schedule, starting with tonight at 8 o'clock. The Beef O'Brady's St. Petersburg Bowl, where Florida International will face Marshall at Tropicana Field, the home of the Tampa Bay Rays. That'll be at 8 o'clock tonight. Florida International facing Marshall. That should be a good, interesting matchup. And then tomorrow, San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl, putting it against the Horned Frogs, the Texas TCU, against Louisiana Tech at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego. And that is tomorrow night at 8. And then Thursday night, it's the Mako Las Vegas Bowl, Arizona State versus Boise State at Sam Boyd Stadium in Vegas, obviously. So, it's going to be that is going to be an interesting one. Boise State not playing on their blue turf. Instead, Ohio and Utah State did. Then on Christmas Eve at 8 p.m., I think that might conflict with an NFL game. I don't know. Sheridan Hawaii Bowl, Nevada versus Southern Miss at Aloha Stadium. That's at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The Advocare V100 Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana, on Boxing Day at 5 p.m. will be the Tigers of Mizzou versus the Tar Heels of North Carolina. Then December 27th, 2 games. Little Caesars Bowl, Western Michigan versus Purdue, the first game featuring a Big Ten team at Ford Field in Detroit. The Belk Bowl, I think that's a new one. Louisville versus North Carolina State in Charlotte, North Carolina, at Bank of America Stadium, home of the Panthers. That's at 8 p.m. on the 27th, next Tuesday. And the Little Caesars is at 4:30. Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman pits Toledo versus Air Force at RFK Stadium in D.C. on 28th at 4:30 p.m. Then the Bridgepoint Education Holiday Bowl, again at Snapdragon Stadium, pitting California University against the Longhorns of Texas. The Champs Sports Bowl, the Seminoles of Florida State versus the Irish of Notre Dame at the Citrus Bowl on December 29th at 5:30. And at 9 p.m. it's the Alamo Bowl, Washington versus Baylor on December 29th at 9 p.m. The Bell Helicopter Armed Forces Bowl pits BYU versus Tulsa at Gerald Ford Stadium in Dallas on December 30th at noon. And the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium, New Era Pinstripe, Rutgers versus Iowa State at 3:20 p.m. That'll be on ESPN. The Franklin American Music City Bowl, at LP Field in Nashville, December 30th at 6:40 p.m. Wow, a lot of bowl games a lot of bowl games when you get closer to New Year. And that's at 6:40 p.m. Mississippi State versus Wake Forest. Insight Bowl, Iowa versus Oklahoma at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe, Arizona at 10 p.m. December 30th. The Mikey Car Care Texas Bowl at Reliance Stadium in Houston, Texas A&M versus Northwestern. So I probably went through a couple. That I think is the Northwestern's the third bowl game, Big Ten featured bowl game, December 30th, and that's New Year's Eve at noon. Then at 2 p.m. on CBS, the Sun Bowl, Georgia Tech versus Utah, one of the rare games on not on the ESPN family of networks. That's at the Sun Bowl in El Paso. at 2 p.m. At 3:30 p.m. there's two going on at the same time. Liberty Bowl, AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Cincy versus Vandy in Memphis, and at AT&T Park it's the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl. Illinois versus UCLA, both at 3:30 p.m., one on ABC, one on ESPN, both on the ESPN3 networks. The Chick-fil-A Bowl down in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Georgia Dome, Virginia versus Auburn at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. Ticket City Bowl, the first game on the January 2nd docket on ESPNU at the Cotton Bowl. It's Houston versus the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Now, of course, Penn State's had a lot of controversy, and it doesn't stop, especially when it comes to the blah, 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 blah. What am I trying to figure here? Oh yes, the QB situation. Matt McGloin. He was in a little scuffle with a teammate, and he is, as far as we know, questionable for the game. And here we go. Here's where it gets fun, because there are 3 games at 1 p.m. on the 2nd. It is the Outback Bowl, Michigan State versus Georgia, Capital One Bowl, Nebraska versus South Carolina, and the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl in Raymond James Stadium in Florida, the Citrus Bowl, and Everbank Field in Jacksonville. So 3 games in Florida at 1 p.m., all on the ESPN family of networks, except the Outback Bowl will not be featured on ESPN3. Just for a reference. The Rose Bowl game presented by Vizio in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena at 5 p.m. on ESPN. Wisconsin versus Oregon, and I believe that is that is not the last game that Big Ten team is featured. I haven't finished yet. Let's see. That's at 5 p.m. on January 2nd. Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. Here's where Rose Bowl game, Fiesta Bowl, Sugar Bowl. Here's where we get to the BCS games. Fiesta Bowl, Stanford versus Oklahoma State at University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. That's at 8:30 p.m. Also, and the next day at 8:30 p.m., the Sugar Bowl, All-State Sugar Bowl, Michigan versus Virginia Tech in the Superdome, also on ESPN. Discover Orange Bowl, the Mountaineers of West Virginia versus Tigers at Clemson in Sun Life Stadium. That'll be January 4th at 8:30 p.m. Fox carries 1 game, and that's the AT&T Cotton Bowl at Cowboys Stadium, Kansas State versus Arkansas. Then we have January 7th, 8th, and 9th. There are games. January 7th at 1 p.m. It's the BBVA Compass Bowl, where it's SMU versus Pitt at Legion Field in Birmingham, Alabama. That's at 1 p.m. January 7th. January 8th, it's the GoGetDaddy.com Bowl at Lad People Stadium in Mobile, Alabama. Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois. And then it is the BCS National Championship game presented by All-State number 1 LSU versus number 2 Alabama in the Superdome, January 9th at 8:30 p.m. 35 games in all. The number 1, number 2 matchup proves to be one of the bigger ones. So we will definitely take a look to recap you on the NFL game from last night. It was Niners 20, Steelers 3. NBA season begins on Christmas Day with 5 matchups. And unfortunately, we were not able to get that video on YouTube, but you can check it out on our Ustream page. Just look for Mikey Report on Ustream. or TMR Live on Ustream, you should be able to find it. Alright, that's everything here from our studios in Mount Cobb. We'll definitely try to keep you up to date with a lot of coverage, and we'll try to actually get some we'll be trying to get back into other coverage once we can. And also, I have to make mention, there have been a couple people who wanted shout-outs. I'm trying to think. Ashley Coffin, Bethany Ocasio, and they wanted shout-outs. And Matt Hackenberg. I know, Facebook friend of mine, I wouldn't say really a former rival of Valley Forge Christian College basketball. He was a good player. I'm not going to discredit his play, even though I am a Valley Forge student and announcer. Good player, good sportsman. And he wanted a shout out, therefore I wanted to make sure I got one to him. He's been begging me for weeks on end to get one out to him. So, Matty Hack, I'm glad I was able to get one out to you. And that's it for Mikey. For the TMR College Bowl preview show, we'll try to keep you up to date with all the bowls via our Facebook page. So definitely keep checking the Mikey Report, or check my Facebook page for all the updates on these bowl games. So that's everything here. I'm Mikey Edwards saying good night.